At the upcoming meeting of state and territory leaders scheduled for July 2, Indigenous Minister Ken Wyatt wants higher targets on our national effort to keep Aboriginal people out of jail. Wyatt, we're told today, wants an overhaul of the Closing the Gap program in the area of Aboriginal incarceration. Given statistics confirm the number of Aboriginal Australians in the prison system has increased from 19% in 2000 to nearly 30% in March this year. These are figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and they also note that the number of Indigenous people in prisons across the country are now almost 13,000 in number, out of a total Australian prison population of just over 44,000. If you were protesting that Black Lives Matter on the weekend, you might be tempted to say, here, there you go, told you it was worth breaking restrictions to march about this issue. Only last weekend's protests were about Aboriginal deaths in custody, not incarcerations per se. And what ABS statistics also confirmed and backed in by the Australian Institute of Criminology is that since the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody in 1991, the rate at which Indigenous people have died in jail has fallen. That's right, decreased. And that rate is now lower than the rate of deaths in custody for the non-Indigenous prison population. Would I be right in assuming we'll now see a march this weekend against white deaths in custody? I doubt it. And of course, that's the problem of dividing a country like ours by the colour of an Australian's skin. Your standing in a country, your rights and your validity should never be about how long you or an ancestor might have lived here or there in order to call that place home. If that was the case, African Americans would rank behind whites, behind Hispanics, behind Native Americans, given the history of North America. Indeed, what matters is not when you arrive in a country, but how quickly you take that country and its people and its values to heart. That's what makes it your homeland. Measured not in years lived where, but how you live, how you love, how you raise your family, according to the customs and traditions of the place you now call home, that and nothing else. Now, this doesn't seek to diminish the special connection Aboriginal people have with this ancient continent of ours, but it does restate my view, my very strong view, that as Australians all, we live under one set of laws, and we must never allow the situation where our laws apply differently based on how long we have been here or the colour of our skin. Rather than a closing the gap target designed to keep Indigenous people out of prison, out of jail, the Minister Ken Wyatt should instead have a target to reduce the crimes committed by Indigenous perpetrators in the first place. I don't want to live in a country where someone gets a prison sentence or not based on the colour of their skin. If, as we have seen by way of recent horrific examples, a young Indigenous man rapes and brutalises a 2-year-old young child, jail is what he deserves. And don't dare give me some tripe about not wanting to give a non-custodial sentence just because he's an Aboriginal and that Black Lives Matter. What about the life of the 2-year-old Indigenous girl here? Doesn't her life matter as well? Or the grandmother bashed within an inch of her life, or any number of other violent crimes committed in Indigenous homes and communities right across this country. Like the same crimes committed in non-Indigenous homes too. The same sentence should apply, because the sentence must fit the crime, not the skin colour of the perpetrator. So I want to say to Ken Wyatt, let's put as much effort into stopping the incidence of crime as you plan to put into keeping Aboriginal people out of jail. And when you do that, Minister, then you really will have started to close the gap.